the name of the God of the entire humanity, whose mercy is profound, whose kindness is everlasting. The Quran is the book of God. It is fully preserved, and it invites all humanity to have faith in it, and as a consequence to succeed in the next life. Of course, when the Quran is presented to the non-Muslims, they do ask as to why should we believe in it. And in the recent times, while interacting with the non-Muslims, some of the Muslims presented one important argument to support the claim that the Quran was the word of God, by saying that the Quran itself actually mentions a challenge which it has thrown to all people who do not believe in it, that if they were to believe that it was not from God, then they should bring forth a surah like the Quranic surah and try as best as they can, and they will not be able to do so. Now, it so happened that when the Muslims made this challenge was responded to by the non-Muslims, especially the Jews and the Christians who were Arabs. They presented it in their sites. One of the sites was called Sura Like It, and to begin with there were a few surahs, the so-called surahs which were presented, and thereafter now we are informed that there is a list of 114 so-called surahs which have been presented in Arabic in response to the challenge that was thrown at them by the Muslims. Has the response of the Christian and Jews thus ensured that the Quranic claim is nullified? Well, of course not at all. The fact of the matter is that the Muslims who presented this challenge were unaware of the fact that the challenge was actually put across to the people who were the immediate addressees of the Quran, the Quraysh, the nobles of Mecca and the surroundings, whose religion, whose traditions were challenged by the Quran, and they were extremely upset that their civilization was as if going to crumble if the Quranic threat was to grow and to be successful. And the Quran challenged these people who were fearful of the future, apprehensive of the ultimate outcome of this presentation of the Quran, that if they were to respond to the challenge, then the Quranic claim that it was from God would be nullified and would not have any ground to stand on. And they were not able to respond to it. And the Quran actually mentioned that they would not be able to respond to it. For the people of the later times to respond to the challenge of Quran really doesn't mean anything, because the Quranic challenge was presented, it was not responded to by the people who were the most capable of responding to the challenge of the Quran, and thus the Quranic message prevailed. The Prophet came, he delivered the message, and he was able to accomplish what he promised right from the beginning, that he and his message and companions would prevail, and prevailed they did, because they were able to transform the entire Arabian society from the pre-Islamic idol worship to a post-Islamic scenario of complete following of monotheism and the understanding of the unity of God. The fact of the matter is that the challenge was never there for anybody except the people who were the immediate addressees. Having said that, if you were somebody who knew the Quran and the language of the Quran, and you would read these 114 surahs which have been presented as if in response to the Quranic challenge, you would know that there is no comparison between the two. What these people have presented is honest to God a joke. But for the Muslims to be able to realize that They ought to know their language, the language of the Quran, and what these people have presented. So what I'm trying to say is that, for one thing, the challenge was not meant for the people who have responded to it. It was unfortunately thrown at them by people who were well-meaning but unwise. And even if you were to read those responses, you would know that those responses really carry no weight. They really have no comparison whatsoever compared to the sublime, the extremely effective and moving language of the Quran. May the Almighty enable us to understand His book properly, and may He enable us to believe in it the way it deserves to be believed in.